Hi everybody and welcome back to another Legends of Runeterra video. So, newest card reveals for today are from Targon. So we're going to be seeing a Malphite, more than likely tomorrow, followed by Ionia and Irelia the day after that. So let's go ahead and look at these cards. I haven't really looked at them that much other than to see that most of them are landmarks with countdown abilities. So let's get right into this. So this first card, top left, Spiral Stairs, a landmark with a countdown of 3. Create a Seed of Strength in hand. Seed of Strength. Grant an ally +3/+2 and overwhelm. Alright, so I see pretty much exactly where they're going with this. Like we mentioned a couple of videos ago, they really want to get more Taliyah synergy. And what's the best way to buff? Well, what's the best sort of keyword to add to Taliyah? It's overwhelm. Being able to have landmarks out, dealing all of that extra damage with, what is it called? It's not stone weaving. I can't remember what. Rock volley, I think. Something like that, where she deals, 2 damage to the enemy nexus or to the enemies in front of her. And anyway, this overwhelm ability is just going to be able to deal a ton of damage if you're able to clear out the opponent in front of you. So I see where they're going with this. However, this is a 3-cost card, and I think we have to evaluate this besides other 3-cost landmarks and kind of the value that you're getting from those. So we can compare this to things, I think, like the Grand Plaza and Scar Grounds, where they're giving you continuous value for being on the board. So the initial payoff, or the initial kind of cost, is that you have to pay 3 mana to have a constant engine, right? And you have that for the rest of the game unless the card is removed or you remove it yourself. With this Spiral Stairs, it's the same cost, but you're only getting 1 payoff for it in 3 rounds theoretically, right? Unless you use the early countdown advanced cards to get this out earlier. So we're still using 3 mana to get a Seed of Strength, which is a slow speed spell. Grant an ally +3/+2 and overwhelm. So, I mean, it's an interesting card for sure, and I can see where they're going with it for the buffing of Taliyah. But I think it's just a little bit too slow. And I don't think that you're generating enough value from this card specifically. I mean, worst case scenario, it is going to be round 6 before you get this out. Then you get a 0 cost. So there we go, Taliyah, right? You put her out. You've got a spell to use on her on round 6. I guess we can copy it as well with Taliyah, but then it's gone. She doesn't get the rock volley off or whatever it's called, and then we need another landmark. So, all in all, I think this landmark is a little bit underpowered. I would like to see this be maybe a 2-cost card. I could be completely wrong about this, though. I mean, been wrong before about cards. But that's just kind of my general impression. Like, permanent buff, turn 6, but we're kind of sacrificing a lot of tempo early on to play this card. Alright, let's go on to this next card here. Rockfall Path, a 2-cost. Countdown 2, obliterate the weakest enemy. So, again, a very interesting card that kind of forces some things out of your opponent and forces them into positions that they don't want to be in, right? It's not, so, I mean, unless you do have the advanced cards, right, which now we're kind of seeing the advanced synergy a little bit better, the opponent is going to know that their weakest enemy is going to be obliterated in 2 rounds, right? And so, like, they can put down weaker enemies to be kind of fodder for their stronger units. But I think in certain matchups, this could actually be a pretty strong card, especially if you're running the countdown cards with this, which I think is how it's going to have to be comboed. So, I mean, obliterate the weakest enemy. I don't know, how do we compare this? So, if we want to get pretty much like a burst speed Rockfall Path off, we're going to have to include Clockwork Curator, I believe it's called, right? That's pretty much the best value. We're using an advanced 2, right? So we're not using more advanced rounds than we need to. So, and that will cost 4 to get basically an automatic kill off. However, it's on the weakest enemy, so it really is variable in in the power of enemy that you're going to destroy. But I think in certain metas, like I said, this could be very powerful, especially if the opponent doesn't have ways to remove it. So I'm thinking more slow control decks that don't have landmark removal. Does that seem kind of limited? Maybe a little bit. But like they don't usually have a lot of cards. You're almost guaranteed to take out a champion if you're able to advance this, and it could be very powerful. And I mean, it's not like it's not an ability effect, I don't think. So it's just gonna go off and obliterate the weakest enemy, which is pretty strong. So they can't deny it. All right. So like I said, I think in certain metas this could be very powerful. Um, yeah, that's about it. I don't think this card is very good against aggro decks, and that's just because you're going to have to wait 2 rounds in a lot of situations till round 4 to be able to take out the weakest enemy, so not very good in that sort of sense, but I think as a counter possibly to control decks, and maybe with the Soothsayer as well, where you're granting landmarks spell shield, that could go a really long ways in helping this be a good card. So anyway, very interesting. I'm sure there are ways to build around this to get value out of it, but it really kind of reminds me of Hunt the Weak as a card, and I could still see Hunt the Weak kind of turning up in certain metas and with certain supports, and maybe in the future with cards. Same thing with Rockfall Path. I think like it seems like pretty good like on paper, right? But maybe kind of hard to get super good value out of. All right, let's go on to the next one. Earth Elemental. Earth Elemental. Once you've summoned 4 or more landmarks this game, grant me +3/+0. So this becomes a 6/5 with Overwhelm. If you're running a landmark deck, I think this is a pretty good card. I really do. Now, the problem is you're going to have to include quite a few landmarks to be able to activate this. But, I mean, you got copies with Talia. They're really pushing the Targon Shurima package here, I can tell. Copying landmarks, using things like the Rock Hopper to get a whole bunch of the what are they called, Roiling Sands or whatever out. I think this is going to be fairly easy to activate in that type of deck. Maybe in other decks, not quite as easy, but in the Shurima sort of the Roiling Sands decks, I think this could be a very good card. A 6/5 or 4 mana is a really big card. Really big and dealing a ton of damage, and we're putting it into a vulnerable deck as well, so we can pull weak units into it. So I think this is a pretty decent card and should help Shurima landmark synergy decks. All right, let's go on to the blue Sentinel. Last Breath. Summon a Crest of Insight. This is a 2-drop, a 2/3. 1 of 2 units revealed here. Summon a Crest of Insight. Okay, down here underneath, Crest of Insight, a landmark. Countdown 1. Get an extra mana gem this round. That's interesting. So more Last Breath synergy. Not that, I mean, there's a whole lot of synergy with Last Breath and Targon. I think that the only other one is the Mentor of Stones. But Crest of Insight, create an extra mana gem this round. I mean, that could be good. It's really hard to evaluate this because this requires a certain amount of planning to be able to use this efficiently. Because once it's gone, it's gone. You're not going to get it back. So, I mean, I think this seems like a smart card. Like, you really have to think and be very careful about what cards you have in your hands so that you can use extra mana. Maybe in a deck with a lot of card draw and a lot of like options in a round, this would be very good in. I think overall it's a pretty good card. A 2/3 and then also creating like an extra mana gem in a round, I think is pretty good. It's a decent stat line for a 2-drop. Not bad for something that's creating an extra mana gem. This could be like a level up, a fast level up later on. And summon a Crest of Insight. Okay, so you don't get the ability to choose when this comes out. So after he dies, it's just going to come up. So there is some also plan around as well. I mean, you should have space on your board just because the blue Sentinels are dying, so that shouldn't be an issue. Get an extra mana gem this round. The next round. All right, so this actually is a really interesting card. I could see this being used in potential Shadow Isles decks with Last Breath abilities, and well, not necessarily Last Breath, but like sacrifice fodder, right? So something, for example, we could use, you know, we can determine when the blue Sentinel dies, when the Crest of Insight is summoned, have like a big card in hand that we can use to summon the next round to get like an early win off or something, right? This seems like a really interesting card to build around. How hard is it going to be able to pull off? Probably pretty hard, and like I said, it's going to take some planning, but this is a very interesting card and could definitely fit into decks. I'm definitely intrigued by it. It probably has a very high ceiling for its worth, but like I said, just planning and workaround is going to be it needs to be prioritized when using this card. All right, that's about it. Tell me what you guys think. It's a little bit mellow today, kind of boring, the reveals, I'll say. I mean, some of the cards are interesting, but we're going to get the big reveal tomorrow with Malphite most likely, and we'll be able to see some of the new cards. Are we going to see the Red Sentinel? Is it called Red Sentinel? I don't know what it's called. The red card for the red buff. This is blue buff. We'll see red buff maybe. Yeah, go ahead and tell me what you guys think. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks.